Assalamu alaikum everyone, hope you're doing well. So in today's class I'll explain you one complete exam paper, that is June 2024 exam series variant 1 to AS level economics. So this is the latest most exam paper, and let's have a look on the first question. The diagram shows a production possibility curve. It indicates the combinations of consumer goods and capital goods produced by an economy using all its available resources. Okay, so this is production possibility curve, and on Y we have consumer goods and on X we have capital goods, right? So consumer goods, if the producer wants to produce more capital goods, then definitely he will have to sacrifice consumer goods. So this is shown with a PPC diagram, and the question says, what does option X indicate? So this is point outside the PPC. So this is the boundary of PPC. It means your resources are limited to this point, and point X is beyond the boundary of resources. So what does this point X represent? So keep in mind, when there is a point outside the PPC, this is non-attainable because resources are not that much sufficient to produce goods and services at that quantity at that point. Okay, so let's move to the options that examiner has given. A lower ratio of capital to consumer goods is necessary to achieve economic growth, and this is not something that is necessary for the economic growth to keep capital consumer goods ratio lower, because sometimes goods may be produced more if the ratio is totally opposite. It all depends on the type of goods. So option A is not correct. Option B is increasing level of unemployment. If unemployment increases, then there must be a point inside the PPC, for example point A, right? So point inside the PPC shows unemployment, while this point is beyond the boundary or outside the boundary of resources, so it does not show unemployment, increasing unemployment. Option C is insufficient factors of production are available, right? So when there is point outside the PPC, it shows that we cannot produce at that point because we don't have sufficient resources, right? So option C is the correct answer, and option D is too many consumer goods are causing a fall in economic growth, right? So it doesn't mean you are producing too much consumer goods, right? Rather it is something that is non-attainable, beyond the boundary of resources, right? So option D is also irrelevant to this question, and option C is the correct answer. Moving to question number 2. What is produced in a mixed economy but not in a free market economy? Mixed economy is a type of economy in which government and private sector both contribute to produce goods and services. So what happens in mixed but not in free market economy, right? So demerit goods are the harmful goods like cigarettes, alcohol, and these are like produced in free market economy. We have to find out something that is not produced in free market economy, right? So free market economy is the type of economy that is under the private sector. So demerit goods are produced under private sector because they are profitable, so firms produce them. So option A cannot be correct because examiner is saying what is not produced. So demerit goods are produced in free market economy. Free goods are not relevant here because free goods are the goods that are provided by the nature instead of government or private sector, and so the free goods are not provided in free market economy, and they are also not provided in mixed economy. They are provided by nature, such as sunlight, fresh air, and like water from river, lake, right? So B is also incorrect answer here. Private goods, free market economy produces private goods, right? We have to find out what is not produced by private economy. Private goods are profitable, so free market produces those goods. Public goods are not produced under the free market economy because public goods are non-rival, non-excludable, so free riders are allowed to use them. and profit making is not possible from the public goods. So free market economy does not produce things that are not profitable to them. So option D is the correct answer. Moving to question number 3, and question number 3 says Earth observation satellite designed to acquire information are close to the theoretical case of a public good. In 2011, the World Meteorological Organization estimated that improving satellite observations would cost an extra $1 billion a year. What is a normative statement about Earth observation satellites? Okay, so normative statements are the kind of statements that are based on value judgment or opinion, and you have to find out the statement that is based on opinion. So these are tricky statements and you should read all of them. So I'm explaining you the correct answer, that is answer D, and I'll also explain you the reason for that as well. The responsibility for the cost of Earth observation satellite should be shared by all governments. So the word should shows an opinion of someone, right? If someone says this should happen, that should happen, that is kind of normative statement or opinion. All other options are positive statement because they can be factually explained based on facts and figures. So this is something that shows opinion, so we will choose option D. If any other option is confusing you, then you can write in the comment, so I'll get back to you for further clarification. So I'm explaining only the correct answer because saving time is really important. If I keep explaining all the questions and all the options, then it will take a lot of time, and exporting such a huge video is really tough and time consuming. So question number 3 is regarding opportunity cost, and there was a construction issue with this question. So this question was discounted by Cambridge, so you need not to answer question number 4. And question number 5 says that the share of total income from profit is in an economy or in a country shows more variation over time than income from interest, rent and wages. Interest is income from capital, rent is income from land, and wages are income from labor. So what is the most likely reason for this, right? So why there are more variations income the share of total income from profit, right? So why there are more variations in profit? Keep in mind, profit is calculated as profit is equal to total revenue or total income minus total cost, right? So these are multiple costs, right? So these costs are the part of profit. What is most likely reason for this? Interest rates are set by the government, so this is not the reason why there should be more variations or more changes in profit. So if government sets or anyone else sets interest rate, that is not something relevant, right? So interest is only one part of the total expenses or total cost, so it might not affect a lot. And profit is what is left after interest, rent and wages are subtracted from the total income. So this is the part of profit. So profit is total revenue minus total cost. So the examiner in option C also basically explains this formula and says that profit is what is left. So profit is the difference, or it is what is left after the payment of all these expenses. So this is a correct answer for this question. However, we look into option C as well. Rent is only the return to the factor, and so it is always the smallest. Keep in mind, all these other components are also the return for factors of production. Interest is return for capital, rent is return for land, and wages are return for labor. So all of these are the returns for labor. returns for factors of production, different factors of production. So examiner says that rent is only the return. So rent is not only the return, rather all other options are also return of factors of production, land, labor, capital. And wages only change annually. If wages only change like annually, then it doesn't mean that there will be very much fluctuations or variations in the profit, right? So profit is basically affected by all of these costs. So individually one cost may not cause so much variations or changes in the profit. So option B is the correct answer. Question number 6 says changes in the market for gasoline petrol in Zimbabwe resulted in fuel shortages and long queues, right? So fuel shortages mean supply will be lesser than demand. Long queues mean people have to stand in queues to get the product. Again, there was a construction issue with this question number 6, and this question was also discounted by the Cambridge, so we need not to discuss this question as well. There were 3 questions in this paper that were discounted by the Cambridge. Discounted mean students were exempted from this question because there was a construction issue in some cases, and in some cases the question was not as per the defined syllabus. And question number 7 says the diagram shows the movement of supply curve for a product from S1 to S2. So initially S1 is the supply curve, new supply curve is S2, right? So there is movement of supply towards right. And examiner says at price P, so this is price P, what happens to the price elasticity of supply for the product and producer surplus when the supply curve moves? Like when supply curve moves to the right, what happens to the price elasticity of supply? Keep in mind, when supply curve starts from the origin point, all the straight lines starting from origin point show that price elasticity of supply is equal to 1 or unitary. So price elasticity of supply will remain the same on both the graphs, so it is unchanged. So we can cross option A and B. And what happens to the producer surplus? Producer surplus is definitely increasing here, so we will choose option D. So price elasticity of supply is unchanged and producer surplus is increasing. So why producer surplus is increasing? Let's have a look on that. Keep in mind, producer surplus is the difference between market price and the price producer is willing to charge. So for example, this is the supply curve and this is the demand curve. Examiner hasn't made demand curve here, so I'm making it more clear to you by drawing the demand curve as well, so that you clearly understand what is the producer surplus here. So keep in mind, this is the equilibrium price where demand and supply curves meet each other. So this is equilibrium price P. Let's say this is price A and this is price B. So consumer surplus is the area, triangular area above price line and below the demand curve. So this is consumer surplus, and the area below the equilibrium price and above supply curve is producer surplus. So this is producer surplus. Examiner is asking question about this area, producer surplus. So initially equilibrium price was this and this was the supply curve. So this triangular area was initially the producer surplus. After the change in supply, when supply moved to the right, equilibrium price stays the same, and now the supply curve is this one. So this will be the total consumer surplus. The bigger triangle, the green one, is the new producer surplus. So producer surplus has increased a lot. So initially it was smaller triangle, but now it is this triangle plus this triangle. So producer surplus has increased. Again, if you have any issue with clarity of this question, then you may write in the comment and I'll provide you a better solution, an easier solution for you. Moving to question number 8, and question number 8 also has a construction issues, so this question was also discounted by the Cambridge, so we will not discuss this question as well. Question number 9 says, in Asia, instant noodles is an inferior good. Keep in mind, inferior goods are the goods that have negative relationship with income, like if income falls, demand will rise, right? Because dried food is a better quality substitute, the diagram shows the demand for instant noodles. So the demand for instant noodle has increased from D1 to D2. So it shows rise in demand for noodles. So again, keep in mind, noodles is an inferior good, right? So what could have caused the shift in demand curve for instant noodles from D1 to D2? So why it shifted to the right? Why it increased? Fall in price of dried food. Fall in price of dried food should have shifted the demand for noodles to the left, because when dried fruit is basically cheaper, its price falls, then people will buy more dried fruit instead of noodles, so demand for noodles should have decreased, so while demand for noodles is increasing in this case. So option A is not correct answer. A rise in real income. If income increases, then demand for demand for noodles should decrease, because noodles is an inferior good, right? So if income increases, demand for inferior goods falls, while in this case demand for inferior good is increasing. So this can't happen, right? So inferior goods are the low quality products. If real income of the consumers increases, their purchasing power will rise, and when their purchasing power is rising, then why will they buy like inferior goods? Rather, they will move to the good quality products. So demand for inferior goods should have fallen, and it should have shifted to the left, but in this case the demand for noodle is increasing. Moving to option C, a rise in unemployment. Rise in unemployment is the correct answer for this question. Why is it correct? We can discuss it as well. When there is unemployment, it means people don't have like purchasing power, because they don't have jobs. When their income falls, demand for inferior goods will rise, because now they cannot buy high quality luxurious products or normal goods, so they will purchase more quantity of inferior goods. Option D is a successful advertising campaign by dried food producers. If dried fruit is advertised successfully, then people must have purchased more dried food instead of purchasing more inferior goods, right? So in this case people are purchasing more inferior goods, so this is also incorrect, right? So when dried food is cheap, is getting popular or successful through advertising campaign, then dried food should be demanded more instead of inferior goods. So in this case inferior goods are demanded more, so D was also incorrect. Question number 10, the diagram shows the impact of an increase in price of a product from P1 to P2. So this is the rise in price. Which area represents the consumer surplus after the price change, right? So before the price change, this was the consumer surplus. Consumer surplus is the area above equilibrium price and below the demand curve. So this is demand curve. So initially consumer surplus was this much area. Again, if I reinforce you the same concept, keep in mind this is the demand curve and this is the supply curve. Examiner has not made supply curves here. If we draw supply curves at our own, then the first supply curve should be at this point and the second supply curve should be at this point, right? But we have to explain this graph without making supply curves. However, I have made them for making it more clear to you. So consumer surplus is the area above equilibrium price. So this is equilibrium price and this is the area below demand curve. So this area represents consumer surplus. So initially consumer surplus was P1, R and T, this bigger triangle, and when price increases to P2, the new consumer surplus will be this much. Again, the area above equilibrium price and below the demand curve is consumer surplus. So the new consumer surplus is this much area, and this is P2RNS. So option B is the correct answer for this question. And now moving to another question, question number 11. Which reason for the increase in demand for a smartphone is an example of joint demand? Right, so joint demand are the basically demand for complementary goods that are collectively demanded or purchased, such as car and petrol. So if you purchase car, then you will have to purchase petrol as well. Right, so again, which reason for the increase in demand for smartphone is an example of joint demand. Right, so there should be increase in demand for smartphone. A fall in its price. Right, so fall in price of product itself doesn't show that it is jointly demanded to something. Right, so in joint demand, there is complementary goods. Demand of one product changes due to the change in price of another product instead of price of good itself. Right, so option A is incorrect. A fall in price of connecting to a network. Network mean like different network cellular companies, such as in Pakistan there is Jazz, Ufone, Telenor, Varid. These are telecommunication companies that provide networks. So increase in demand for smartphones may be because of fall in price of connecting to a network. So option B is the correct answer for this question, because when connecting to the network is cheaper, then people will be able to get more like connections, and when they purchase more connections, they will demand more smartphones. So option B is the correct answer. You can read other options. If any one of them is confusing you, then write in the comment and I'll explain you why those answers are incorrect. Question number 12 is, a market is in equilibrium. The government intervenes by creating a price floor below which the market price cannot fall. Which term describes this form of government intervention? So this is minimum price, basic definition of minimum price. Minimum price is the price below which the market price cannot fall. Right, so minimum price, if we draw its graph looks like this. This is supply, this is demand, equilibrium takes place at this point, equilibrium price is P and quantity is Q. So if government sets minimum price is the price that is set above the equilibrium, and this is minimum price PM, and this is above the equilibrium, and producers cannot charge below this price. They can charge above this price but cannot charge below this price. So this is the definition of minimum price. Question number 13 says, what is an example of a public good? Right, public goods are basically the goods that are non-excludable and non-rival. So the clear-cut answer is D, the state provision of a national defense system. Keep in mind, national defense system or defense system is always the example of public goods, so you should keep it in mind. So what other options can confuse you? A new road linking a major city with a port. So this is not an example, always an example of a public good. This can be example of public good if everyone is allowed to use it. Right, so if it is basically connecting to a port, then it means only the people who have to travel to the port will be allowed to use it. Right, so there are certain barriers, everyone cannot go there. Like this is not non-excludable and non-rival. So this is incorrect. Option B is free lunches provided to students at a school. This is also not a public good, because if lunches, if we look into lunches, then lunches are not non-excludable and non-rival. For example, if a student is provided with a lunch and if he eats it, then it is no more available to anyone else. So public goods are the goods that are available to many people at the same time, right? So if one person uses it, then its quantity does not diminish for others or decrease for others, so it remains available to them, such as defense systems, such as street lights, such as like national highways, etc. And option C is Wi-Fi internet access provided for all the citizens of a town. Wi-Fi is a quasi public good, not public good, because quasi public goods are the goods that are partially non-excludable and partially non-rival. So Wi-Fi connection has the same kind of features. For example, if Wi-Fi is open to every citizen, then if so many people keep connecting Wi-Fi, then internet speed will decrease, and the people who were already using Wi-Fi, their benefit will decrease. So this is the example of rivalry, and when the product is rival and excludable, it is not a public good. Question number 14 says the diagram shows an initial market equilibrium for an agricultural product of $6 and 800 units. So initially quantity is 800 units and the price is $6. So it means the initial equilibrium point is D, where demand where demand and supply intersect each other. How much will the government have to spend to increase the market price to $10? If government wants to increase price to $10, then how much government should buy? Government should spend. So keep in mind, when price increases to $10, you can see demand decrease to 400 units, because when price is high, less people will purchase the product. And you can see the supply is 800 units, so supply is more than the demand. So this much quantity will be purchased by the consumers, and rest of the quantity will have to purchase by the government. So government will purchase this extra 400 from 400 to 800 at price 10. And if we multiply price 10 and multiply quantity 400, then we will get this much area that will be spent by the government. And if we multiply height and base, this is height, that is 10, and this is base, that is 400, this is base 400. So 400 into 10 is equal to 4,000. So government will have to spend this much. So this much is the spending by the government to charge price $10. And what about the rest of the area? This area will be the spending of the consumers, because consumers are demanding this much quantity, right? So this is the consumer expenditure. Green area is the consumer surplus, and red area is the green area is the consumer's expense, not surplus. Consumers expenses or spending, and red area shows spending by the government. Question number 15 is, which government policy will increase aggregate demand? Right, so aggregate demand is the overall demand of an economy. Rising indirect tax is a supply side policy, not demand side policy, so it will not increase aggregate demand. And option B is reducing the budget surplus. Budget surplus is when government spends less and its income is more. And reducing budget surplus mean government will be spending more and saving less. So government has less income and more expenses. If it happens, then definitely increasing government expenditure is the part of aggregate demand. If we look into the formula of aggregate demand is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So here C is consumption, I is investment, G is government spending, X is export, and M is import. So since government expenditure is the part of aggregate demand, so if it increases, then aggregate demand will also increase. So examiner is saying which of these will increase aggregate demand. So reducing budget surplus mean government is spending more and its income is less. So when government spends more, government expenditure will increase, and when government expenditure increases, it will increase aggregate demand. So option B is the correct answer. However, I'm explaining other options as well. Removing domestic subsidies. Subsidy is a part of like supply side policy, so it should increase aggregate supply or decrease aggregate supply instead of increasing aggregate demand. So if government is removing domestic subsidies, then it means aggregate supply should decrease. Removing import quota. Import quota is again an indirect tax, and indirect tax is a part of supply side policy, not the demand one. Question number 16 says that the table gives the values of price index of an economy in 2 years, and what can be concluded about the period, right? So year 1 to year 2, what can be concluded? So for question number 16, nominal income doubled, right? So if nominal income doubles, it doesn't mean that always there will be like a rise in price index, right? So nominal income is the income that you earn in financial terms, so it has nothing to do with price index. And then real income doubled. Real income is the purchasing power of people, like after the adjustment of rate of inflation. So we only know the change in price index that represents the inflation. Inflation is increasing, but we don't know about what happened to the income, right? So for that like for change in real income, we must know the income of the person or the people or individuals in a society or an economy as well. So we don't know what was the income, whether it double from year 1 to year 2 or not, right? So we cannot like choose this option as well. The cost of living doubled. Yes, this is correct answer, because prices have doubled. When price index is increasing from 60 to 120, it means prices are now doubled. When price doubles, cost of living will be doubled as well, because now you have to pay double price for everything, so your cost of living will increase. The standard of living is double. No, standard of living will decline, because when things are getting expensive, people won't be able to afford them, so as a result their standard of living will decrease instead of increasing. Question number 17 is what causes a rise in cost push inflation. Cost push inflation is a type of inflation which is caused by increase in cost of production and decrease in aggregate supply in the economy. So for this, a fall in the rate of income tax. Income tax is a demand side factor, so it will cause demand pull inflation instead of cost push inflation, so we will cross this option. A rise in rate of income tax, this is again a demand side factor, so we can't choose this. Income taxes or direct taxes are the part of demand side policy, and indirect taxes just as sales tax, custom duties, excise duties, these are the part of cost push inflation. And option C, a decrease in exchange rate of currency. So this is a correct answer, because when there is depreciation of currency, imported raw material will get expensive. When the prices of imported raw material increases, then cost of importing raw material will increase, so as a result cost push inflation will also rise. So option C is the correct answer. And option D is incorrect, because appreciation increases the value of currency, so price of imported raw material will decrease, and as a result cost push inflation should have decreased instead of rising. So option C is the correct answer. Question number 18 is which change affecting an economy's labor force will cause an increase in economic growth in the short run, right? So these factors will affect labor force, and which one of these factors will increase economic growth, right, in the short run. Keep in mind these are two like important things. One is there should be increase in economic growth, and this growth should be in the short run. Okay, so an increase in students entering university. If more students are entering the university, then labor force will decrease, and it cannot cause economic growth, because When students enter the university, it means they are not available to contribute in the economy in production process. So when they don't contribute, economic growth will not occur. Question number option B is an increase in birth rate. If birth rate increases, then it doesn't lead to economic growth, rather it will increase burden on an economy, because when the very young people in the economy in the form of babies, small babies, is higher, then labor force first of all will not increase, because they need to be at least 18 years old to be the part of labor force. So they can't contribute to the production and they can't cause economic growth. So option B is also incorrect. Moving to option C, an increase in immigration of skilled labor. So this is the correct answer for this question. Immigration mean people coming into the country, and these people are skilled labor force as well. So if more people are coming in, like immigration with I is basically people coming in, and emigration with E means people exiting the country or leaving the country. So in this case, more people are coming into the country, and they're also skilled labor, right? So when they are the part of skilled labor and they are coming into the country, so overall labor force will increase and it will cause economic growth as well. So option D भी हम देख लेते हैं. So option D is an increase in school leaving age. If school leaving age increases, then it means now people will continue their schooling for longer years, more number of years. So when they continue with schooling, then they cannot contribute to the economic growth. Question number 19 is, which factor explains the difference between GDP and GNI, right? So keep in mind, GNI basically considers net compensation of employees from abroad. That is the additional thing that is calculated and included in GNI, but not GDP. So option D is the correct answer for this question, and this is kind of factual question, so I'm moving to the direct answer of this question. Salaries remitted by those working abroad to their home accounts. This is kind of thing that is part of GNI but not the part of GDP. So GDP is the total market value of all the goods and services produced within the national boundaries of a country, and it does not include any kind of compensation of employees from abroad. So this is a basic definition, so you should keep that definition in your mind. So if you do, then you can easily identify it. If you're confused with any other option, then please write in the comment. I'm just explaining one to just save the time. So question number 20 is, what is true about a government's macroeconomic objectives, right? So what is true like about government macroeconomic objectives? Government macroeconomic objectives like include the objectives of controlling inflation, controlling unemployment, achieving economic growth, correcting balance of payment deficit, and improving exchange rate of currency and standard of living of the country as well. So these are multiple objectives of the government macroeconomic policy. So what is true about the macroeconomic objectives? Option A is economic growth ensures a more even distribution of income. More even distribution mean more equal distribution of income. So when economic growth occurs, it has no surety and guarantee that there will be more equal distribution of income, because there may be some industrialists earning very huge amount of money as compared to the poor people, the working class. So option A cannot be correct, because it may or may not like contribute or ensure that equal distribution of income is taking place, right? So there will be the gap between rich and poor as well. Question number 20 part B says, increasing output ensures that more workers are employed. It is not basically ensured, because there is no surety that more workers will be employed if output is increasing, because output may be increasing using capital intensive techniques, that is using more machinery, technology and tools. So it doesn't mean that more workers are being employed. So it may happen, but not always. It doesn't ensure that it will happen certainly. So option B is not correct. Choosing between macroeconomic objectives require a normative decision. Normative decision is kind of decision that is based on value judgment. So yes, it happens, because when one government may be choosing one objective and focusing more on that, the other, like opposition parties, may be focusing on something else. For example, one political party may be focusing that controlling inflation is more important, the other might be focusing on infrastructure building. So this is kind of normative statement. So option C is correct answer, and option D is a stable rate of inflation means zero inflation is required. Stable inflation doesn't mean that inflation should be zero, rather it should be like maybe 2%, 3%, and it should remain the same in subsequent years, or there may be a little change. For example, if initially there was 2% and in next year inflation rate increases to 2.1%, then it works and it shows stability, right? So there is a little fluctuation in the price level. And it doesn't mean that if price was initially 2%, it must remain 2% next year as well. So it's not like stable inflation doesn't mean that zero inflation. Okay, so question number rather zero inflation mean there will be no rise in the price level, right? If initially price level was $10 for a certain product, then it must remain the same. Zero inflation doesn't mean that there is no change in price level. So correct this statement. Question number 21. The original equilibrium in an economy is represented by point X, the intersection of aggregate demand AD1 and AS1 on AD demand curves. AD diagrams. So initial aggregate demand is AS1 and AD1 is the initial aggregate supply. AS1 and AD1 intersect each other at point X, so initial equilibrium is at point X, where price is PE and output is YE. Okay, the government decreases money supply. Money supply is basically the part of demand side policy, and if government decreases money supply, it means people have now less money, and when they have less money, they spend less as well. So what is the new equilibrium position? So aggregate demand will fall, because when people don't have sufficient amount of money, they will purchase less and aggregate demand will decrease. So when aggregate demand moves to AD3 and AS1 remains the same, then AS1 and AD1 intersect each other at point D. So D is the new equilibrium position. And question number 22 says, how does a government use its central bank to promote an expansionary monetary policy? Central bank is the main bank of the country that has sole authority to issue currency notes and coins. And expansionary monetary policy is like when you increase money supply in the economy, decrease interest rate, and make credit regulations easier. So in question number 22, D is the correct answer, increasing the issue of notes and coins in circulation. Government is increasing notes and coins in circulation in the country, so it is increasing money supply. When money supply increases, it is expansionary monetary policy. All other options are incorrect. So if you are confused with any other option, then please write in the comments. And question number 23 is, again, I'm basically explaining, in some questions I'm explaining the correct answer just to save time. 23 is which combination of problems would be most likely to cause a country's government to reduce taxation and lower interest rate, right? So lowering taxation is like kind of expansionary fiscal policy, and lowering interest rate is kind of expansionary monetary policy, right? So what is the most likely? When examiner writes most or least likely, it means there are more options that may be correct, but there should be one the most appropriate answer. Okay, so the first option is demand pull inflation and a balance of payment current account deficit, right? So demand pull inflation is the type of inflation which is caused by increase in aggregate demand in the economy, right? So again, which combination of problem would be most likely to cause countries government to reduce taxation and lower interest rate? Like if there is demand pull inflation, then government should not decrease taxation and should not lower the rate of interest, because if it does, then these two factors will further increase aggregate demand, and aggregate demand will further if it further increases, then it will increase demand pull inflation. So option A is not correct, because like lower interest rate and lower taxation will not cater this issue. Demand pull inflation and low investment, again demand pull inflation is not these two policies are not helpful to control demand pull inflation. And then we have a high unemployment rate and balance of payment current account deficit, right? So if we reduce taxation and decrease interest rate, it will control unemployment. So controlling unemployment would be the aim. So when there is high unemployment, government should decrease interest rate. So this option is correct. Option C, this part is correct. And balance of payment current account deficit, if current account is already deficit and we lower the interest rate and lower the taxation, then it means people can further increase the volume of imports and deficit will further increase rather than decreasing it. So option C is also incorrect. High unemployment, yes, if there is high unemployment, then lowering taxation and lowering interest rate can help to control this issue. And low level of investment, yes, if investment is low, then low rate of interest and low taxation on producers will motivate the people to get more loans due to low rate of interest and invest into the business. And lower taxation is also an incentive for the producers to invest and produce more. So option D is the correct answer. Question number 24, what would be the best policy for a country to reduce a balance of payment deficit? So the aim is to reduce balance of payment deficit. Deficit is when the volume of imports is more than or the value of imports is more than the value of exports, like more money is going out of the country and less money is coming into the country. So which policy will reduce this deficit? Option A is an increase in interest rates. So this is the correct answer as well. So if government increases interest rate, mean now people will save more money in the bank account to earn high interest rate instead of purchasing imported goods, so deficit will be corrected. All other options are incorrect. If you are confused with any other option, then please write in the comment. 25 says the government wants to protect its textile industry from imports, right? Which policy is likely to have the least impact on imports of textiles, right? So all of these policies will have the most impact, and there is one thing that has the least impact on textile imports, right? So for this question, answer B is correct answer, a sales tax on all textiles sold in the country, right? So if sales tax is imposed on all textiles that are sold in the country, is least likely to affect volume of imports, because tax is imposed on the local textiles instead of imports. So this policy will not have that much impact on the volume of imports, because people may continue importing textiles from other countries, because it is imposing taxes on local textiles, domestic textile instead of imports. So this policy will affect the domestic textiles but not the imported one. Option A is a ban on the import textile. Definitely if you ban imports, then it will have the most impact on the import of textiles. So this cannot be correct, because we need something that has least impact. A tariff on imports of textile, if we impose tariff is a kind of tax that is imposed on imported goods. So if we impose tariff on imports of textiles, then it means now people will be able to import less textiles. So it has most impact, not the least impact. And question number and option D is all textiles sold in the country are required to meet minimum quality standards. But this is not something that will impact the volume of imports. So if we meet the minimum quality standards, then it means that people are more sure about the quality, so they will continue importing goods. So option D is also incorrect. Question number 26 is, a major European economy announced that the primary income account deficit of its balance of payment changed from 20 billion to 50 billion. Like, primary income account has been deficit and this deficit has further increased. What would have contributed to this change? Right, an increase in the value of imported medical supplies. So this is the part of trade in goods, not the part of primary incomes. An increase in investment dividend paid to the foreigners. Yes, this is a part of primary income, so it will affect it. If more dividend is paid to the foreigners, then more money will go out of the country, so deficit will increase. Reduction in the value of exported manufactured goods. This is the part of trade in goods or visible trade, not the primary income. Reduction in the expenditure by visiting tourists. So this is also not kind of thing that can affect deficit. This is a part of trade and services, right, not primary income. So primary income is only part B. So if you are interested to further know what primary and secondary incomes are, then click on the link showing above in I button. So I'll also give you the link in the comment as well, so you can clearly see what primary and secondary incomes are. That video will definitely help you out to clarify this concept. Question number 27. The diagram shows the amount of cotton and butter that can be produced in country X and Y with the given quantity of resources. So this is the PPC of X and this is the PPC of Y. First of all, what we need to do is we can construct a table instead of this graph, so we understand it better. So this is X, country X, and this is country Y, and there are two goods. One is butter and the other one is cotton, right? So country X produces 190 units of butter and 300 units of cotton, and country Y produces 200 units of butter and 500 units of cotton, right? Okay, so now we have a clear table for this to easily compare the values. What can be concluded from the diagram? Country X has an absolute advantage in production of cotton, right? So country X, if we look into country X, then country X can produce less cotton than country Y. So if country can produce less than Y, then it cannot have absolute advantage. Absolute mean clear-cut advantage. In cotton, Y can produce more cotton than X, so Y has absolute advantage in cotton. X has absolute disadvantage in cotton. And if we look into butter, B is basically for butter. So again, Y has absolute advantage in butter because it can produce more butter than X, right? So X can produce 190 and Y can produce. So Y has absolute advantage in butter as well as cotton. So option A is incorrect. So X has no absolute advantage in production of any of the good. Country X has comparative advantage in the production of butter. Yes, this is the correct answer, because we can clearly see that X, although X can produce lesser butter than Y, however the difference is not that much. It means it is not sacrificing that much, but if it basically produces cotton, then it will and there is a huge difference between the production of two goods in two countries. So X has like has no absolute advantage, but it has comparative advantage in butter, because its loss in making butter is relatively lesser than the loss when it produces cotton. This is again a tricky question. If you further need clarity, then you can write in the comment box. Option C is country wise. So option B is the correct answer. I think you can read the other options, and if there is confusion, you can write in the comment. Another method you can use for this comparison is you can use the opportunity cost method as well, right? And how to calculate opportunity cost and ratios, then if you don't know, then you can again write in the comment and I'll get back to you. Question number 28 is what is indicated by an economist terms of trade. Terms of trade is basically the ratio between prices of exports and prices of imports. So if you know the formula, then you can easily identify that option C is the correct answer. Purchasing power of its imports relative to its exports relative to its imports. So terms of trade is calculated as price of export over price of import into 100, right? Px is price of export and Pm is price of import. This is Pm, right? So option C is the correct answer, and it is true by definition. All other options are incorrect. Question number 29 is what will cause an increase in demand for US dollars? So why people will buy more US dollar? Demand mean buying. So why will people buy more dollars, US dollars? And the correct answer is option B, foreign firms buying US firms, right? If foreign businesses purchase US firms, then they will have to pay in US dollars, right? So for being able to pay in US dollars, they will have to purchase more US dollars. So demand for US dollars will increase. So option B is the correct answer. Dividend paid from US firms to the foreigners, this will increase the supply of dollar, not the demand for dollar. Foreigners who live in the US sending money home to their relatives, it will again increase supply of dollars, not the demand for dollars. US government wanting to hold reserves, this is again not the factor that affects the demand for dollars. So option B is the correct answer. And the last question of this paper is what is not included in the current account of balance of payment, right? So you have to find out what is not, right? So option D is the correct answer, because foreign direct investment is not the part of current account, rather it is the part of financial or official account, which is not the part of syllabus as well. So these things are the part of current account. So if you can easily identify these three options that they are the part of current account, then you can shortlist this answer easily. International aid is a secondary income, and secondary income is the part of current account. Trade in goods, it is visible trade is the part of current account. Trade in services, this is invisible trade, and invisible trade is the part of current account as well. So these three things are the part of current account, and they are included in current account. Foreign direct investment is the part of official or financial account and not the part of current account. So this is my mobile number, 0 +92 333 4429673, and I have just started a crash course for retake of October-November 2024. If you are interested to join, then you may contact me on this WhatsApp number. So see you with the next video soon. Thank you for watching. Allah Hafiz.